The birthday candles flickered as my wife sobbed over her phone, tears mixing with melted wax on our kitchen counter. 10-year-old Cora's party hat sat crooked on her head while she stared at her mother with confusion that mirrored my own. "Mom, why are you crying?" Finn asked, chocolate frosting smeared across his chin. Ayla Derrick, she kept her maiden name for the law firm, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm just emotional, honey. Hormones." I'd heard that excuse before. 12 years of marriage teaches you when your spouse is lying, and Ayla was lying through her perfectly veneered teeth. I caught a glimpse of her phone screen before she flipped it face down. An engagement announcement. Brent Marrow and some blonde socialite, all smiles and expensive jewelry. Brent, her college boyfriend, the one she never thinks about anymore. "Daddy, can we open presents now?" Cora tugged at my sleeve, her voice cutting through the tension that had settled over our suburban kitchen like fog. "Absolutely, sweetheart." I forced a smile and guided the twins toward the living room, leaving Ayla to compose herself. Through the doorway, I watched her shoulders shake as she stared at that phone. The thing about forensic accounting, my former profession before I became a stay-at-home dad, is that it teaches you to notice patterns, small inconsistencies that most people miss. Like how Ayla had been working late every Thursday for the past 3 months. Or how she'd started using a different perfume, something floral and expensive that she definitely hadn't worn during our anniversary dinner last month. "Look, Daddy, a new tablet." Cora held up her gift, eyes bright with excitement. "Perfect. I'd need to set up the family sharing account later, sync it with our cloud storage. Technology makes everything so convenient these days." The twins tore through their presents while I helped, keeping one eye on Ayla. She'd moved to the kitchen window, phone pressed to her ear, voice too low for me to hear. But I caught fragments. "I can't believe, and after all this time. Kai, can you help me with something?" Ayla appeared in the doorway, her makeup carefully repaired. She'd always been good at covering her tracks. "Sure, what do you need?" "The router's acting up again. My tablet keeps disconnecting from the Wi-Fi." "Interesting. I'll take a look after we finish here." She nodded and disappeared upstairs. I heard the bedroom door close, then the muffled sound of another phone call. We had excellent acoustics in this old rambler, built in the 1950s when people constructed houses to last. "Daddy, will you play the new game with us?" Finn waved a board game box in my direction. "Of course, buddy. Let me just fix Mom's internet problem first." The router sat in my home office, a converted bedroom where I managed our finances and helped the twins with homework. Ayla's tablet lay on the desk beside it, screen dark but still warm. She'd been using it recently. I powered down the router, counted to 30, then restarted it. Standard troubleshooting. While it cycled through its startup sequence, I examined Ayla's tablet more closely. She'd left it unlocked, unusual for someone who worked in corporate law where confidentiality was paramount. The screen showed her email inbox. Nothing suspicious at first glance, just the usual work correspondence and shopping newsletters. But there was another email account logged in, one I didn't recognize. Alayad2023tempmail.com. Temporary email. Burner account. My forensics training kicked in automatically. I shouldn't have looked. Any marriage counselor would tell you that snooping violates trust, breaks down communication, destroys relationships. But 12 years of hunting financial fraud had taught me that when someone creates hidden accounts, they're usually hiding something worth finding. The burner account contained 6 months of correspondence with one sender. Brent Marrow, personalogmail.com. My hands moved without conscious thought, scrolling through message after message. Hotel confirmations, restaurant reservations, photos I definitely wasn't supposed to see. And there, buried in a conversation from last week, something that made my stomach drop. "Can't wait for Portland. Booked us the suite at the Heathman. Flight arrives Friday at 2:30 p.m. Portland. Ayla had told me she was going to a legal conference in Seattle this weekend. a girls' trip with her best friend Ivy Mace from the firm. I scrolled further, finding airline confirmations in both their names. Round-trip tickets, departing this Friday, the same day I was supposed to leave for my own conference in Chicago. She'd planned this carefully, ensuring I'd be 3 states away when she flew to Oregon for her romantic weekend. "Daddy!" Cora's voice echoed from the living room. "The game's ready." "Coming, sweetheart," I called back, my voice steadier than I felt. I took photos of the email threads with my phone, then carefully returned Ayla's tablet to its original position. The router had finished rebooting, all lights green and functional, just like our marriage appeared to be, from the outside. Upstairs, I could still hear Ayla's muffled conversation. She was probably talking to Ivy, coordinating their confront story. Or maybe she was on the phone with Brent, planning their reunion. The twins had set up their board game on the coffee table, pieces arranged with the meticulous care that only 10-year-olds possessed. They looked so much like Ayla, the same dark hair, the same stubborn chin, but they had my eyes, gray-green and observant. "What's the objective?" I asked, settling onto the carpet beside them. "You have to collect all the treasure before the other players," Finn explained. "But you have to be smart about it. If you're too greedy, you lose everything." Wise words from a 10-year-old. We played for an hour, the twins giggling as they outmaneuvered me with strategies I pretended not to see coming. Ayla joined us eventually, settling onto the couch with a glass of wine and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "How was your call?" I asked casually. "Just work stuff. You know how it is." She sipped her wine, gaze focused on the game board rather than my face. I knew exactly how it was. That night, after the twins were asleep and Ayla was in the shower, I sat in my office with a legal pad and began making lists. Habits from my treasury days, when investigating financial crimes, organization was everything. Joint accounts, checking, savings, investment portfolio, retirement funds, shared assets, house, vehicles, insurance policies, custody considerations, school records, medical history, character references, evidence, email screenshots, hotel confirmations, airline bookings. Ayla emerged from the bathroom in her silk pajamas, hair wrapped in a towel. "You're working late." "Just balancing the checkbook, making sure everything's in order." She kissed the top of my head, her perfume, that new, expensive scent, lingering in the air. "Don't stay up too long. You need your rest before your Chicago trip." Chicago. Right. The conference I'd been planning to attend for months, the one that would conveniently remove me from the equation while she flew to Portland with her college boyfriend. "Actually, I've been thinking about canceling Chicago," I said, "spending the weekend with you and the kids instead." Ayla's reflection froze in the dresser mirror. "But you've been looking forward to this conference for weeks." "Things change. Family's more important than work." "That's sweet, honey, but you shouldn't miss it on our account. Besides, I'll be in Seattle anyway. The house would be empty except for the kids." Seattle. She'd almost forgotten her own lie. "You're right," I agreed. "Wouldn't want to waste the registration fee." She smiled, relieved. "Exactly. And Ivy's counting on me for the conference. We've had this planned for months." Months. Just like her correspondence with Brent. After Ayla fell asleep, I returned to my office and opened my laptop. 12 years in forensic accounting had taught me that people leave digital footprints everywhere, especially when they think they're being clever. Ayla's tablet was synced to our family cloud account, a convenience feature she'd probably forgotten about. Every photo, every document, every app backup was automatically saved to our shared storage, including her temporary email account. I downloaded everything. 6 months of messages, dozens of photos, hotel and restaurant receipts charged to credit cards I'd never seen. She'd been planning this affair with the same attention to detail she brought to her legal cases, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated her husband. The airline website was still open in her browser cache. 2 round-trip tickets to Portland, departing Friday at 2:30 p.m., returning Sunday evening. Premium seats, purchased with a credit card linked to her burner email account. I memorized the confirmation numbers, then opened a new browser window and navigated to the airline's customer service portal. Cancellation policies were clearly outlined. Full refund if canceled more than 24 hours before departure. My cursor hovered over the Manage Booking button. Ayla shifted in her sleep down the hall, murmuring something I couldn't understand. Probably dreaming about her romantic weekend, her grand reunion with the man she'd never stopped loving. I clicked Cancel Booking and confirmed the refund. Then I opened a new search window and looked up flights to Tucson, Arizona. Ayla's mother, Fina Marin, lived in a retirement community there, a place Ayla visited exactly twice per year, always under protest. Fina was demanding, critical, and had never approved of our marriage. She thought Ayla had settled beneath her station. Maybe it was time for an extended mother-daughter visit. I booked a one-way ticket to Tucson, departing Friday at 2:30 p.m., same time as her original Portland flight, but a very different destination. I paid with our joint checking account, the one where I handled all the finances. The confirmation email arrived in my inbox within minutes. I printed it out, along with screenshots of her correspondence with Brent, and placed everything in a manila envelope. Tomorrow would bring new conversations, new revelations. But tonight, I sat in my office surrounded by evidence of my wife's betrayal and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: clarity. The birthday candles had long since burned out, leaving only pools of hardened wax on the kitchen counter. But sometimes you need the darkness to see what's really there. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of Seattle weather that makes everything look washed out and tired. I'd been awake since 5 a.m. drinking coffee and watching Ayla pack for her conference in what she thought was secret. She'd left her suitcase in the guest room, filling it with clothes I'd never seen before. Lingerie that definitely wasn't meant for legal seminars, a red dress that cost more than our monthly grocery budget, perfume bottles arranged like precious artifacts. "Daddy, why is Mom packing fancy clothes for work?" Cora asked, appearing in the doorway with her school backpack. "Good question. Maybe lawyers dress differently in Seattle, sweetheart." Ayla appeared behind Cora, looking flustered. "Oh, I didn't realize you were up there. I was just organizing." "Organizing, right." I helped Cora with her backpack straps. "Finn, breakfast is ready." We moved through our morning routine with careful politeness, like dancers who'd rehearsed these steps 1,000 times. Ayla checked her phone constantly, probably coordinating with Brent or Ivy or whoever else was involved in this elaborate deception. "What time is your flight?" I asked, buttering toast for the twins. 2:30. Ivy's picking me up around noon. She poured coffee with hands that trembled slightly. Nervous energy or guilt? Probably both. "I'll miss you," I said, meaning it in ways she couldn't understand. After dropping the kids at school, I drove to my old boxing gym downtown. Coach D was there, as always, working the heavy bag with methodical precision. He'd trained fighters for 40 years and had the scarred knuckles to prove it. "Kai Dornell," he grunted, not pausing in his rhythm. "Thought you'd gone soft playing house husband." "Maybe I have." I grabbed hand wraps from the equipment bin. "Got time to talk?" "Always got time for my fighters, even the retired ones." We moved to his office, a cluttered space that smelled like leather and liniment. D poured coffee from a pot that looked older than I was. "What's eating you, son?" I told him everything. The emails, the plane tickets, the lies. D listened without interruption, nodding occasionally like a priest hearing confession. "So what you gonna do about it?" he asked when I finished. "I've already done something. Canceled her tickets, booked her a different flight." D laughed, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. "That's tactical thinking, but tactics ain't strategy. You want to win this fight, you need a plan that goes 12 rounds. I'm listening. First rule of boxing: protect yourself at all times. You got kids, assets, a life to preserve. Don't let anger make you sloppy. He was right. This wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting what mattered. Second rule, know your opponent. This wife of yours, she's been planning this for months. That means she's got backup plans, contingencies. You need to think 3 moves ahead. I spent an hour with Dee, working through scenarios and possibilities. By the time I left, I had a clearer picture of what needed to happen. At home, I printed Ayla's new boarding pass and placed it in an envelope with her name written in block letters. Then I went to the garage and retrieved her suitcase from the guest room, setting it beside her car with the envelope taped to the handle. Noon arrived with clockwork precision. I heard Ayla moving around upstairs, probably applying the final touches to her transformation. When she came downstairs, she looked like a stranger, hair styled differently, makeup applied with professional skill, wearing a traveling outfit I'd never seen before. "Has Ivy texted?" I asked. "She's running a few minutes late." "Traffic." Ayla checked her phone again, frowning. "I should probably get my suitcase ready." "Already taken care of. It's by your car." Relief flooded her features. "Thank you. You're so thoughtful." Thoughtful. That was one word for it. We stood in the kitchen, the same space where she'd cried over Brent's engagement announcement just days earlier. The birthday candle wax was still there, a small reminder of how quickly things could change. "I'll miss you," she said, stepping closer. "Will you?" Something in my tone made her pause. "Of course I will. Why would you ask that?" "Just wondering if you'll be too busy with conference activities to think about home." "It's only 2 days, Kai. I'll be back Sunday evening." Sunday evening. When she was supposed to return from Portland, sated and guilty and probably ready to confess or leave or do whatever people do when their secret lives collide with reality. A car honked outside. Ivy's silver BMW sat in our driveway, engine running. "That's my ride." Ayla kissed my cheek, her lips cool and impersonal. "Take care of the kids. I love you." "I love you too." I watched from the window as she walked to her car, heels clicking on wet pavement. She grabbed the suitcase handle, noticed the envelope, tore it open without thinking. The boarding pass fluttered to the ground. Ayla picked it up, read it once, then again. Her face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, understanding, panic. She looked back at the house. I was standing in the kitchen window, manila envelope in my hands, watching her with the same detached interest I'd once brought to financial crime scenes. Our eyes met through the glass. Ayla said something to Ivy, who got out of the BMW and walked over. They had a brief, animated conversation. Ivy picked up the boarding pass, read it, looked at the house with an expression I couldn't quite interpret. Then Ayla was walking back toward the front door, suitcase rolling behind her like a reluctant pet. She entered without knocking, face flushed with anger or embarrassment. "What is this?" I slid the manila envelope across the kitchen island, the same granite surface where we'd shared thousands of meals, homework sessions, family conversations. "I think you know what it is." She opened the envelope with shaking hands. Screenshots spilled out like evidence at a crime scene, her email correspondence with Brent, hotel confirmations, restaurant reservations, photos that made her face go pale. "You went through my private messages?" "Your tablet syncs to our family cloud. Nothing private about it." "You had no right?" "I had every right. We're married, Ayla. Joint accounts, shared assets, 2 children who depend on both of us making good decisions." She stared at the papers scattered across the granite, her carefully constructed deception laid bare in black and white. "This isn't what it looks like. It looks like you've been planning to spend the weekend with your college boyfriend while I'm in Chicago. It looks like you've been lying to me for months." Ivy appeared in the doorway, clearly uncomfortable. "Maybe I should go." "No," I said. "Stay. This concerns you too." Ayla shot me a warning look. "Kai, don't what? Don't mention that Ivy knows about Brent. Don't point out that your girls' trip was always meant to be a cover story? Ivy's face confirmed everything. She'd been part of this from the beginning, probably helping coordinate schedules and alibis. We need to talk privately, Ayla said. We've been talking privately for 12 years. Look where it got us. The kitchen fell silent, except for the steady drip of rain against the windows. Ayla gathered the screenshots with mechanical precision, stacking them like legal documents. What do you want? She asked finally. I want you to get on that plane to Tucson. I want you to spend the weekend thinking about what kind of person you've become. And when you're ready to have an honest conversation about our marriage, you can call me. My mother lives in Tucson. I know. Understanding dawned in her eyes. This wasn't random punishment. It was surgical precision. Fina Marin would ask questions, demand explanations, judge every decision Ayla had made. A weekend with her mother would be more uncomfortable than any hotel suite in Portland. You can't just rearrange my life. Watch me. Ayla looked at Ivy, who shrugged helplessly. Your flight leaves in 2 hours, I continued. Security lines are long on Fridays. You should probably get going. And if I refuse? I gestured toward the screenshots. Then these become exhibits in divorce proceedings, along with documentation of hidden credit cards, secret email accounts, and 6 months of adultery planning. The word adultery hung in the air like smoke. Ayla flinched as if I'd slapped her. This is blackmail. This is consequences. She stood there for a long moment, suitcase handle still clutched in her white-knuckled grip. Outside, Ivy's BMW continued running, exhaust visible in the cold air. Fine, Ayla said finally. I'll go to Tucson. But this conversation isn't over. No, it's not. She walked toward the door, then paused. What about the kids? What do I tell them? Tell them you're visiting Grandma Fina. Tell them work called you away. Tell them whatever you want. You're good at creative storytelling. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I watched through the window as she and Ivy had another brief conversation beside the BMW. Then Ivy drove away, leaving Ayla alone with her suitcase and her one-way ticket to reality. She sat in her car for several minutes, probably calling Brent to cancel their romantic weekend, or maybe calling her mother to warn her about the unexpected visit. Either way, she was learning what it felt like when carefully laid plans collapsed without warning. At 12:45, Ayla's car pulled out of the driveway. I called the kids' school to let them know I'd be handling pickup today, then settled into my office chair and opened my laptop. There was more work to do, phone calls to make, appointments to schedule, futures to secure. But first, I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. The boarding pass had been perfect. Same departure time as her Portland flight, but a very different destination. She'd gotten the message all right. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people experience the consequences of their own choices. The afternoon stretched ahead, full of possibility. The house felt different with Ayla gone. Not peaceful exactly, but honest. No more careful conversations, no more watching her check her phone every few minutes, no more pretending I didn't notice the lies. I picked up the twins at 3:30, their backpacks heavy with weekend homework and art projects. They chattered about their day as we drove home, oblivious to the seismic shift that had occurred in their absence. Where's Mom? Finn asked as we pulled into the driveway. She had to visit Grandma Fina unexpectedly. Work emergency. Cora wrinkled her nose. Grandma Fina smells like mothballs and complains about everything. That's not very nice, sweetheart. But it's true, she protested. Remember last Christmas when she said our tree was too small and our turkey was too dry? I remembered. Fina Marin had opinions about everything and shared them whether invited or not. Ayla would be getting the full treatment this weekend. Questions about her marriage, her career, her parenting choices, her life decisions. By Sunday evening, she'd be ready to confess just to escape her mother's scrutiny. How long will she be gone? Finn asked. A few days, maybe longer. We spent the evening doing normal family things, homework at the kitchen table, frozen pizza for dinner, a movie on the couch. The twins seemed to enjoy having my undivided attention, and I found myself relaxing for the first time in months. After they went to bed, I returned to my office and continued my investigation. Ayla's digital footprint was extensive once you knew where to look. The temporary email account was just the beginning. She'd also created social media profiles under her maiden name, reconnected with college friends, built an entire parallel life that existed solely online. Her Facebook messages with old classmates painted a picture of someone who felt trapped, unfulfilled, nostalgic for her younger self. She'd been particularly active in a private group for their graduating class, sharing memories and photos from 20 years ago. Brent had been active in the same group. I scrolled through months of public posts and private messages, watching their relationship rebuild itself one comment at a time. It had started innocently enough, responses to shared memories, likes on each other's photos, but gradually the interactions became more frequent, more personal. The turning point seemed to be his breakup announcement 6 months ago. Ayla had been one of the first to offer sympathy, and their private messaging had escalated quickly from there. She'd told him about our marriage problems, most of which were news to me. According to her messages, I was controlling, distant, unsupportive of her career. She felt like she'd lost herself in motherhood and domesticity. Some of it stung because it contained grains of truth. I had taken charge of our finances after leaving Treasury. I did handle most of the household management while she focused on her legal career. But I'd thought we were a team, dividing responsibilities based on our strengths. Apparently, she saw it differently. Brent had been a sympathetic ear, validating her feelings and offering perspective from someone who knew the real her. Their conversations grew increasingly intimate, full of shared memories and what-if scenarios. The hotel bookings started 3 months ago, weekend trips to cities where they both had business conferences. I cross-referenced the dates with Ayla's calendar and found the pattern. Every time she'd claimed to be attending a legal seminar or client meeting, she'd actually been meeting Brent. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "This is Fina. Your wife is here and very upset." "What did you do?" I typed back. "Ask her. She says you're being unreasonable about a work trip." "I'm sure she does." "Young man, I demand an explanation." I almost smiled. Fina Marin in full battle mode was a formidable sight. But this time her ammunition was pointed in the wrong direction. "Ayla can explain everything when she's ready to be honest." My phone rang immediately. Fina's number. "Hello, Mrs. Marin." "Don't you Mrs. Marin me, Kai Dornell? What is this nonsense about plane tickets and work trips?" Ayla is beside herself. "I'm sure she is. She says you canceled her business travel and sent her here instead. That's controlling behavior, young man. Borderline abusive." Controlling. The same word Ayla had used in her messages to Brent. "Did she tell you where she was really planning to go?" "Seattle, for a legal conference." "Ask her about Portland. Ask her about Brent Marrow." Silence stretched across the phone line. Fina might be difficult, but she wasn't stupid. She'd known Brent in college, had actually approved of him back then. Unlike me, he came from the right kind of family with the right kind of money. "I see," she said finally. "Do you?" "Put Ayla on the phone. She's your daughter, Mrs. Marin. Your house, your rules." I hung up and returned to my laptop. Within minutes, I could hear raised voices through Ayla's location-shared iPhone. Fina demanding explanations, Ayla trying to maintain her cover story, the conversation escalating into the kind of mother-daughter confrontation that had been brewing for decades. The argument lasted nearly an hour. When it finally ended, my phone buzzed with a text from Ayla. "We need to talk." I didn't respond. Saturday morning brought sunshine and the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything seem possible. The twins wanted pancakes, so we made them from scratch, measuring flour and cracking eggs with scientific precision. "Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced?" Cora asked while flipping a pancake. The question hit like a physical blow. Why would you ask that? Because Jenny's parents got divorced last year, and it started with her dad going on trips alone and her mom crying a lot. Finn nodded solemnly, and they had lots of quiet conversations where they thought she couldn't hear. Smart kids. Too smart for their own good. Your mom and I are working through some problems, I said carefully. But whatever happens, we both love you very much. That will never change. But you might not live together anymore? I don't know, sweetheart. Some things are complicated. We finished breakfast in contemplative silence. The twins seemed to accept my non-answer with the resilience that children possess, but I could see them processing the information, filing it away for future reference. My phone rang while we were cleaning up. Ivy Mace's number. Hello, Ivy. Kai, we need to talk. Do we? About yesterday, about Ayla. This whole situation is getting out of hand. Is it? Look, I know you're angry, but sending her to her mother's was cruel. Fina is difficult. So is adultery. Ivy sighed. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I have 6 months of evidence. Evidence of what? Emails? Hotel bookings? That doesn't prove anything happened. It proves intent. It proves deception. It proves that my wife has been living a double life. People make mistakes, Kai. They get confused. They have feelings they don't understand. That doesn't mean... Stop. I kept my voice level, conscious of the twins in the next room. You helped her plan this. You knew about Brent, about the Portland trip, about all of it. Don't pretend to be an innocent bystander. I was trying to be a good friend. Good friends don't enable adultery. Good husbands don't spy on their wives. Good wives don't give their husbands reasons to spy. The conversation was going in circles. Ivy was trying to minimize, deflect, reframe the situation as a misunderstanding rather than a betrayal. It was probably the same argument she'd been making to Ayla for months. What do you want? She asked finally. I want honesty. I want accountability. I want my wife to decide whether she wants to be married or not. And if she chooses the marriage, then we'll figure out how to rebuild. But the lies stop now. And if she doesn't, then we'll figure out how to co-parent effectively. Ivy was quiet for a long moment. You're really willing to end 12 years of marriage over this? I'm not ending anything. I'm just refusing to pretend anymore. After hanging up, I took the twins to the park. We played on the swings and fed ducks at the pond, normal Saturday activities that felt precious in their simplicity. Other families were there too, couples pushing strollers, kids chasing soccer balls, teenagers holding hands by the water. I wondered how many of them were dealing with similar secrets, similar betrayals. How many marriages were held together by habit and convenience rather than love and trust. Dad, look! Finn pointed toward the parking lot. There's Mom's car. My heart jumped before I realized it was just a similar model. Ayla was still in Tucson, still dealing with her mother's interrogation, still facing the consequences of her choices. But someday soon, she'd come home. And when she did, we'd have to decide what our future looked like. The twins ran ahead toward the playground, their laughter carrying on the wind. Whatever happened between Ayla and me, I'd make sure they were protected. They deserved parents who were honest with each other, even if those parents couldn't stay married. My phone buzzed with another message from Ayla. Please call me. We need to fix this. I put the phone away without responding. Some things couldn't be fixed with a phone call. Some things required time, space, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. The afternoon stretched ahead, full of possibility and uncertainty in equal measure. Sunday evening arrived with the kind of gray drizzle that made Seattle feel like the edge of the world. I'd spent the weekend in a strange state of suspended animation, taking care of the twins, maintaining normal routines, while waiting for the other shoe to drop. Ayla's return flight from Tucson was scheduled to land at 8 p.m. I'd been tracking it online, watching the little airplane icon crawl across the map toward home. The twins were in their pajamas, finishing homework at the kitchen table when headlights swept across the living room window. Ayla's car in the driveway, engine ticking as it cooled. "Mom's home." Cora jumped up, scattering math worksheets. "Finish your homework first," I said gently. "Mom will still be here in 10 minutes. Through the window, I watched Ayla sit in her car, gathering courage or composing arguments. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, makeup-free face pale in the porch light. The glamorous woman who'd left for her conference had been replaced by someone who looked defeated. She finally emerged, pulling her suitcase from the trunk with mechanical movements. The same suitcase I'd packed for her, redirected from Portland to Tucson, now returning home full of whatever lessons Fina Marin had taught her. The front door opened quietly. "Hello?" "We're in the kitchen," I called back. Ayla appeared in the doorway, and the twins launched themselves at her with the enthusiasm that only children possess. She hugged them tightly, eyes closed, breathing in their familiar scent. "How was Grandma Fina?" Finn asked. "She was herself." Ayla's eyes met mine over their heads. "Lots of opinions about everything." "Did she make you eat her weird casseroles?" Cora wrinkled her nose. "Something like that." We moved through the evening routine with careful politeness, homework checked, teeth brushed, bedtime stories read. The twins seemed to sense the tension between their parents, but they were young enough to be reassured by familiar rituals. After they were asleep, Ayla and I faced each other across the kitchen island, like opposing attorneys preparing for trial. "How was your weekend?" she asked. "Peaceful? How was yours?" "Educational." She poured herself a glass of wine with hands that trembled slightly. "My mother has some interesting theories about marriage." "I'm sure she does." "She thinks I'm an idiot." "Are you?" Ayla flinched. "I suppose I deserve that." "You deserve honesty, something we haven't had much of lately." She sat down heavily, wine glass cradled in both hands. "Kai, about Portland." "About Brent, you mean?" "Yes, about Brent." She took a shaky breath. "I know how it looks. It looks like you've been planning to cheat on your husband while he's out of town." "I wasn't going to. We weren't planning to." "What were you planning? Separate hotel rooms? Platonic sightseeing?" Silence stretched between us. Outside, rain drummed against the windows with increasing intensity. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "I honestly don't know what would have happened." "But you wanted to find out." "Maybe. Yes. I think so." At least she was being honest now. "Why?" "Because I'm 42 years old and I feel invisible. Because I spend my days writing contracts and my evenings helping with homework, and I can't remember the last time someone looked at me like I was interesting. I look at you. You look at me like I'm your co-parent, your household management partner, not like I'm a woman you desire." The accusation stung because it contained truth. We'd fallen into patterns, roles, comfortable routines that prioritized efficiency over intimacy. "So you decided to reconnect with your college boyfriend." "I didn't decide anything. It just happened. He reached out after his engagement ended, we started talking, and suddenly I remembered who I used to be." "Who you used to be was 22 and single." "Who I used to be was passionate about things, excited about life, not just going through the motions." I understood the feeling. My own career had ended abruptly when budget cuts eliminated my position at Treasury. I'd become a stay-at-home dad out of necessity, not choice, and sometimes I missed the intellectual challenge of financial investigation. But I hadn't dealt with that loss by planning to cheat on my spouse. "What do you want, Ayla?" "I want to feel alive again. I want to matter to someone." "You matter to the twins. You matter to me." "Do I? Really?" Because most days I feel like I could disappear and you'd just adjust the household schedule accordingly. The words hit harder than I'd expected. Was that really how she saw our marriage? A business partnership with children? I never knew you felt that way. Because we don't talk anymore. We coordinate, we manage, we function, but we don't connect. She was right. We'd become efficient roommates, dividing labor and sharing responsibilities, but rarely sharing ourselves. So what happens now? I asked. I don't know. Mother thinks I should beg for forgiveness and promise to be a better wife. What do you think? I think we both need to decide whether we want to be married or just co-parents who share a house. The honesty was brutal, but necessary. We sat in silence, processing 12 years of accumulated distance and disappointment. For what it's worth, Ayla said finally, nothing happened with Brent. Not physically. We talked, we remembered, we planned, but we didn't cross that line. Yet, she agreed. My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. This is Brent. We need to talk. I showed Ayla the screen. Her face went pale. He doesn't know about Tucson, she said quickly. I told him the conference was canceled. What did you tell him about us? Nothing. I said we'd talk when I got back. The phone buzzed again. I know you canceled her tickets. Mature move, bro. Bro. I almost laughed. Your boyfriend has an interesting vocabulary. He's not my boyfriend. What is he? I honestly don't know anymore. I typed back, thanks for the feedback. Have a great evening. You're not going to engage with him? Why would I? This is between you and me. Ayla looked surprised. Most men would want to confront the other man. I'm not most men, and he's not the problem, he's just a symptom. We talked until midnight, covering 12 years of accumulated grievances and misunderstandings. It wasn't pleasant, but it was honest in a way we hadn't been for months. By the time we went to bed, in separate rooms, we'd established a few basic facts. Our marriage was in serious trouble. We both bore responsibility for the distance between us. The twins' well-being was our top priority. We needed professional help to figure out whether this relationship was salvageable. It wasn't the dramatic confrontation I'd imagined. No shouting, no tears, no ultimatums. Just two adults acknowledging that they'd lost their way and weren't sure how to find it again. As I lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, I thought about the boarding pass that had started this whole conversation. A simple piece of paper that had forced us to face truths we'd been avoiding for years. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic or devastating. Sometimes it's just refusing to enable someone else's delusions. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, therapy appointments, custody discussions, the complex work of either rebuilding or dissolving a marriage. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt like I was living in reality instead of a carefully constructed fiction. The rain continued drumming against the windows, washing away the remnants of whatever we used to be. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crystalline clarity that follows a storm. I woke early, made coffee, and sat in my office reviewing the previous night's conversation. Ayla and I had agreed on counseling, but I'd learned enough about human nature during my forensic career to know that people often say what they think others want to hear. The real test would be her actions over the coming days. I was making breakfast when Ayla appeared, dressed for work in her standard legal uniform, dark suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back in a professional chignon. She looked composed, but I noticed the careful makeup covering shadows under her eyes. "Morning," she said, pouring coffee. "Morning? Sleep well?" "Not particularly." She glanced toward the twins' rooms. "Are we telling them anything?" "About what?" "About the situation. Our conversation last night. What would you like to tell them?" She considered this while adding cream to her coffee. "That we're working through some problems. That we love them. That some things might change but their security won't." Sounds reasonable. The twins appeared in pajamas and bedhead, carrying backpacks and complaints about Monday morning. We moved through the routine: breakfast, clothing negotiations, lunch preparation, with the practiced efficiency of a pit crew. "Are you and Dad fighting?" Cora asked as I braided her hair. Ayla and I exchanged glances. "We're having some grown-up discussions," Ayla said carefully. "But we're not angry with each other." "Jenny's parents had grown-up discussions too," Finn observed. "Now her dad lives in an apartment." "Every family is different, buddy," I said. "Your mom and I are trying to figure out what's best for everyone." After dropping the kids at school, I drove downtown to meet with Tom Harrison, a family attorney I'd known since my Treasury days. His office occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. "Kai Dornell." He stood up from behind a desk covered in legal documents. "Been a while. How's domestic life treating you?" "That's why I'm here." I gave him the condensed version: the emails, the planned affair, the weekend in Tucson, our conversation last night. Tom listened with the neutral expression that lawyers perfect, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. "So, you're not filing for divorce today," he summarized when I finished. "Not today, but I want to understand my options." Smart. Washington is a no-fault state, so the adultery angle won't affect property division. But documented deception could influence custody arrangements. The kids are my priority. As they should be. You've been the primary caregiver while she focused on her career? For the past 5 years, yes. That works in your favor. Courts prefer stability and continuity for minor children. We spent an hour reviewing assets, debts, and potential scenarios. Tom's advice was pragmatic. Document everything, avoid confrontation, focus on the children's best interests, and hope that counseling could repair what seemed irreparably broken. "One more thing," he said as I prepared to leave. "Change your passwords, all of them. Bank accounts, email, social media, everything." "You think she'll retaliate?" "I think people do desperate things when their comfortable lies get exposed." I spent the afternoon implementing Tom's suggestions: new passwords, separate bank accounts, copies of important documents stored in a safety deposit box. It felt like preparing for war, but maybe that's what divorce was. A carefully orchestrated conflict with rules and strategies and acceptable casualties. My phone buzzed with a text from Ayla. "Ivy wants to meet for lunch tomorrow. Is that okay?" I typed back, "You don't need my permission to see your friends." "I know. I'm asking anyway." "Why?" "Because I'm trying to be transparent." Transparent. An interesting choice of words from someone who'd spent months living a double life. "Do what you think is right," I replied. Tuesday's lunch meeting between Ayla and Ivy took place at a downtown restaurant I could see from Tom Harrison's office building. I wasn't spying exactly. I had legitimate business in the area, but I found myself watching their table through the window. They talked for 2 hours. Intense conversation, lots of hand gestures, what looked like tears from Ayla at one point. Ivy appeared to be doing most of the talking, leaning forward with the earnest expression of someone delivering important advice. When they finally stood to leave, Ivy hugged Ayla with what seemed like genuine affection. Whatever their conversation had covered, it had clearly been significant. That evening, Ayla came home looking thoughtful. We managed dinner and homework supervision without major incident, but I could sense her processing whatever Ivy had told her. "How was lunch?" I asked after the twins went to bed. Illuminating. "In what way?" "Ivy thinks I've been selfish. She says I've been using Brent as an escape from problems I should be addressing directly." "Do you agree?" "Maybe. Probably." Ayla sat down across from me, hands folded in her lap. "She also thinks you've been remarkably restrained, considering." "Restrained how?" "Most men would have thrown me out, filed for divorce, tried to destroy me publicly. You canceled a plane ticket and sent me to my mother's house." "Most men don't have forensic training." What does that mean? It means I understand the difference between justice and revenge. Justice is proportional. Revenge is emotional. She considered this. So canceling my tickets was justice? It was consequences. You planned to deceive me, so you lost the opportunity to execute that plan. And sending me to Mother's? That was educational. You needed perspective from someone who wouldn't enable your rationalization. She certainly provided that. Ayla almost smiled. 3 days of lectures about responsibility, commitment, and the consequences of selfish behavior. Did it help? It helped me realize that I've been living in a fantasy. Brent isn't the solution to my problems, he's just a distraction from them. Progress, maybe, but I'd learned to be cautious about sudden revelations and dramatic changes of heart. What about us? I asked. I called Dr. Sarah Martinez today. She can see us Thursday evening. Dr. Martinez was a marriage counselor with an excellent reputation and a practical approach to relationship problems. The fact that Ayla had made the appointment without prompting was encouraging. Are you committed to the process? I asked. I'm committed to figuring out whether we can fix this, whether we should fix this. And if we can't, then we'll figure out how to co-parent effectively and move on with our lives. It wasn't a declaration of love or a promise of reconciliation, but it was honest. After months of deception, honesty felt like progress. Wednesday brought a text from Brent. Ayla won't return my calls. What did you do to her? I showed the message to Ayla when she got home from work. Want me to respond? No, I'll handle it. How? By telling him the truth. That I made a mistake, that I'm trying to save my marriage, and that he needs to respect that decision. And if he doesn't? Then I'll block his number and move on. That evening, Ayla spent an hour on the phone with Brent. I couldn't hear the conversation, but her body language told the story. Tense at first, then increasingly firm. When she finally hung up, she looked relieved. How did he take it? About as well as expected. He called you controlling, me brainwashed, and our marriage a sham. Charming. He's hurt. I understand that, but it doesn't change anything. What happens now? Now we see Dr. Martinez tomorrow and figure out whether 12 years of marriage is worth fighting for. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, for the first time in months. The woman sitting across from me wasn't the glamorous stranger who'd left for Portland, or the defeated person who'd returned from Tucson. She was someone in between, flawed, honest, uncertain, but present. I hope it is, I said. So do I. Thursday evening couldn't come fast enough. Dr. Sarah Martinez's office occupied a converted Victorian house near the University District, with comfortable chairs arranged around a coffee table that held tissues and a small fountain that bubbled quietly in the background. The setting was designed to feel safe, non-threatening, conducive to difficult conversations. Ayla and I sat on opposite ends of a couch, careful not to touch, while Dr. Martinez reviewed the intake forms we'd completed separately. So, she said, setting down her notes, you're here because of an affair that didn't quite happen. That's one way to put it, I said. How would you put it, Kai? I'd say we're here because my wife has been living a double life for 6 months, planning to cheat while I was out of town, and we're trying to figure out whether our marriage is salvageable. Dr. Martinez nodded and turned to Ayla. And your perspective? I'd say we're here because I got lost somewhere along the way and made terrible choices that hurt my husband and jeopardized our family. Those are very different framings of the same situation. Kai, yours focuses on Ayla's actions. Ayla, yours focuses on your internal state. Both are probably true. We spent the first session establishing ground rules and basic facts. Dr. Martinez was skilled at asking questions that revealed underlying assumptions and unspoken resentments. Ayla, when did you first realize you were unhappy in your marriage? I don't know if unhappy is the right word. Disconnected, maybe. Like we were roommates who happened to share children. And Kai, when did you first notice that disconnection? Honestly, when I found the emails. Before that, I thought we were just busy. 2 careers, 2 kids, normal life stress. So Ayla was experiencing emotional distance while Kai was experiencing normal routine. Does that sound accurate? We both nodded. This is actually quite common, Dr. Martinez continued. One partner feels invisible while the other feels functional. The question is whether you can bridge that gap. The session lasted 90 minutes and felt like emotional archaeology, digging through layers of accumulated disappointment to find whatever foundation might still exist. Homework, Dr. Martinez said as we prepared to leave. I want you to have one honest conversation every day, not about logistics or children or schedules, about feelings, needs, hopes, fears. Can you commit to that? We agreed, though I wasn't sure either of us knew how to have those conversations anymore. Friday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was working in my office when the doorbell rang, revealing a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-20s, blonde, expensive clothes, nervous energy. Are you Kai Dornell? Yes. I'm Leora Ventrell, Brent's ex-fiancée. The woman from the engagement photos. Up close, she looked younger than her pictures, with the kind of polished appearance that came from professional styling and unlimited budgets. What can I do for you, Miss Ventrell? I think we should talk. I invited her in, curious about what Brent's former fiancé wanted to discuss. She perched on the edge of our couch, designer handbag clutched in manicured hands. I know about your wife, she said without preamble. Do you? Brent told me, after our engagement ended. He said he'd been in contact with an old girlfriend, that she understood him in ways I never could. I'm sorry about your engagement. Don't be. Finding out about Ayla was the best thing that could have happened to me. Interesting perspective. How so? Because it showed me who Brent really is, someone who pursues married women while planning his wedding to someone else. The pieces clicked into place. Brent had been conducting his emotional affair with Ayla while engaged to Leora. The timeline I'd constructed from Ayla's emails suddenly made more sense. When did you find out? 3 weeks ago. I saw messages on his phone, confronted him, and he confessed everything. Said he'd never gotten over his college girlfriend, that our relationship was a mistake. That must have been difficult. It was liberating. I realized I'd been engaged to an illusion. Leora reached into her handbag and pulled out a manila envelope. I thought you should see these. The envelope contained printouts of text messages between Brent and Ayla, more explicit than anything I'd found in her emails. Photos, detailed plans for their Portland weekend, discussions about leaving their respective partners. Where did you get these? Brent left his phone unlocked after our fight. I photographed everything before he could delete it. The messages painted a picture of 2 people planning not just a weekend affair, but a complete life change. They'd discussed divorce timelines, custody arrangements, financial strategies. This wasn't a momentary lapse of judgment. It was a calculated exit strategy. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know the truth, and because I want Brent to face consequences for once in his privileged life. I studied Leora's face, looking for signs of vindictiveness or manipulation. But she seemed genuinely concerned, motivated by a desire for honesty rather than revenge. What kind of consequences? His family has money, connections, influence. He's never had to deal with the results of his actions. Maybe it's time he learned. What did you have in mind? Nothing illegal, nothing violent, just exposure. Let people know who he really is. I thought about Tom Harrison's advice regarding documentation and consequences. What people? His business partners, his social circle, his family. She paused. Your wife's colleagues. The last suggestion gave me pause. Ayla's legal career was important to her. one of the few things that still brought her satisfaction. Damaging her professional reputation would be crossing a line from consequences into cruelty. "I appreciate the information," I said carefully, "but I need to think about how to use it. Of course, I just wanted you to have all the facts." After Leora left, I sat in my office staring at the new evidence. The text messages revealed a level of planning and commitment that went far beyond what Ayla had admitted. They'd been preparing to blow up both their marriages, not just indulge in a weekend affair. My phone buzzed with a message from Ayla. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." Working late. The same excuse she'd used dozens of times over the past 6 months. But now I had to wonder, was she really at the office, or was she meeting with Brent to discuss damage control? I called Tom Harrison and arranged to drop off the new evidence. Whatever happened next, I wanted everything properly documented. That evening, after putting the twins to bed, I sat in the living room and tried to process the day's revelations. The woman I'd married 12 years ago had been planning to leave me, take our children, and start over with her college boyfriend. The counseling session suddenly felt naive, like trying to repair a house while the foundation was crumbling. Ayla came home at 11 p.m., looking exhausted but not guilty. She kissed my cheek and asked about the twins, normal domestic interaction that felt surreal given what I now knew. "How was work?" I asked. "Busy. Big case going to trial next month." "Anyone I know?" "Corporate merger, pretty boring stuff." I watched her face for signs of deception but saw only fatigue. Either she was telling the truth about work or she'd become an expert at hiding her emotions. "How are you feeling about therapy?" I asked. "Hopeful, I think. Dr. Martinez seems to understand the issues." "Do you think we can fix this?" "I want to try, I really do." She sounded sincere, but sincerity was easy when you controlled the flow of information. The text messages in my office told a different story than the one she was sharing with Dr. Martinez. "Ayla, is there anything else you need to tell me? About Brent, about your plans, about anything?" She hesitated for just a moment, so briefly I might have imagined it. "No, I've told you everything." "Everything?" "Everything that matters." I nodded and kissed her goodnight, then went to my office and read through Leora's evidence again. Tomorrow would bring new decisions, new consequences, new revelations. But tonight, I finally understood the full scope of what I was dealing with. The marriage I'd been trying to save had been over for months. I just hadn't known it yet. The question now was what to do with that knowledge. Saturday morning brought the kind of Seattle sunshine that made everything feel possible. Clear skies, crisp air, the kind of day that reminded you why people chose to live in the Pacific Northwest despite the rain. I was making pancakes when my phone rang. Tom Harrison's number. "Morning, Kai. Hope I'm not calling too early." "Not at all. What's up?" "I've reviewed the materials you dropped off yesterday. We need to talk." "About what, specifically?" "About the fact that your wife and her boyfriend have been consulting with attorneys about divorce strategy for the past month." The spatula slipped from my hand, clattering onto the kitchen floor. "What?" "The text messages reference legal consultations, asset protection strategies, custody preparation. This wasn't just an affair, Kai. It was a coordinated exit plan." I stepped out onto the back deck, away from the twins who were setting the table inside. "How coordinated?" "Coordinated enough that you should assume they've already filed preliminary paperwork. Coordinated enough that you need to act quickly to protect your interests." "What kind of action?" "The kind we discussed. Asset protection, custody documentation, evidence preservation, and you need to do it today." After hanging up, I stood on the deck for several minutes processing this new information. Ayla wasn't just planning to leave, she was planning to leave strategically, with legal advice and financial preparation. The woman making coffee in my kitchen wasn't trying to save our marriage. She was buying time to execute her escape plan. "Daddy, pancakes are burning." Cora called from inside. I rescued breakfast and spent the morning maintaining normal family routines while my mind raced through implications and options. Ayla seemed relaxed, playing with the twins and discussing weekend plans as if our Thursday therapy session had resolved everything. I was thinking we could go to the farmer's market, she suggested. Make it a family day. Sounds nice. And tonight, maybe we could have a real conversation, without the kids around. About what? About us. About what we want our future to look like. I almost laughed. She was planning to discuss our future while secretly preparing to destroy it. Sure, I agreed. That sounds important. We spent the afternoon at Pike Place Market, wandering through stalls of fresh produce and artisanal crafts. The twins bought honey sticks and fed fish to the vendors' cats, while Ayla and I maintained the fiction of a normal family outing. This is nice, she said, linking her arm through mine as we watched Finn negotiate the price of a small wooden toy. It is. I'd forgotten how much I enjoy just being together. No schedules, no pressure, no agenda. No agenda. The irony was almost overwhelming. Ayla, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? She considered the question seriously. Right now, yes. This moment feels good. What about generally, with our life, our marriage, our choices? I'm trying to be. I think therapy is helping me understand what I really want. And what do you want? I want to feel connected to you again. I want our kids to see parents who love each other. I want to stop feeling like I'm just going through the motions. She sounded completely sincere. If I hadn't seen the text messages, hadn't talked to Tom Harrison, hadn't learned about the legal consultations, I might have believed her. That evening, after the twins were asleep, we opened a bottle of wine and sat in the living room for our promised conversation. I've been thinking about what Dr. Martinez said, Ayla began, about bridging the gap between us. And I think I need to take responsibility for my part in creating that gap. I've been so focused on what was missing that I stopped appreciating what we have. What do we have? 2 beautiful children, a comfortable home, 12 years of shared history, a foundation we could build on if we both commit to the work. Is that what you want? To build on our foundation? I think so. Yes. I sipped my wine and studied her face. She looked earnest, hopeful, like someone genuinely committed to repairing our relationship. The performance was flawless. What about Brent? What about him? Have you talked to him since Tuesday? Briefly, to tell him I was committed to working on our marriage. How did he take that? He wasn't happy, but he respects my decision. Another lie. The text messages Leora had shown me indicated that Brent was anything but respectful about Ayla's supposed commitment to our marriage. Ayla, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. Is there anything else you haven't told me? About Brent? About your plans? About anything that might affect our future? She met my eyes directly. No. I've been completely honest about everything. Everything? Everything that matters to our marriage. The same phrase she'd used before, a careful qualification that technically avoided lying while concealing the truth. Good, I said, because honesty is the only way this works. I agree completely. We talked for another hour about therapy goals, communication strategies, and family priorities. Ayla was articulate, thoughtful, and convincing. If I hadn't known about her secret legal consultations, I might have been persuaded that she was genuinely committed to reconciliation. Instead, I felt like I was watching a masterclass in manipulation. Sunday morning, I told Ayla I needed to run errands and took the twins to the park instead. While they played, I called Tom Harrison from a bench overlooking the playground. I need to move forward with protective measures, I said without preamble. What changed your mind? She's still lying, about everything. Last night she looked me in the eye and claimed she'd been completely honest while planning to divorce me behind my back. Are you sure you want to do this? Once we file paperwork, there's no going back to counseling and reconciliation. I watched Cora and Finn chase each other around the jungle gym, their laughter carrying on the afternoon breeze. They deserved better than parents who lied to each other. I'm sure. Okay, I'll prepare the documents today. We'll file first thing Monday morning. What should I expect? Surprise, anger, accusations of betrayal. She'll claim you're being vindictive, that you never gave therapy a real chance. And then? Then you'll discover who your wife really is when she can't control the narrative anymore. That evening, Ayla suggested we schedule another therapy appointment. I think we're making real progress, she said. Dr. Martinez seems to understand our dynamic. I'll call her office tomorrow. Thank you, Kai, for being willing to fight for us. Of course. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm grateful you're giving me one. Everyone deserves a chance to do the right thing. I love you, she said, kissing me goodnight. I love you too. It was the last normal conversation we would ever have. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that matched my mood. I dropped the twins at school, then drove downtown to Tom Harrison's office. Ready? He asked, gesturing toward a stack of legal documents. Ready? We spent 2 hours reviewing paperwork, divorce petition, custody motion, asset protection orders, everything necessary to protect my interests and the children's welfare. The papers will be served at her office this afternoon, Tom explained. Professional but public enough to make a statement. What kind of statement? That you're not the passive victim she thinks you are. At 3 p.m., while I was picking up the twins from school, my phone exploded with calls and text messages. Ayla's name appeared on the screen repeatedly, followed by numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. Daddy, your phone is buzzing a lot, Finn observed from the back seat. Work stuff, buddy. Nothing important. We went home and started on homework while my phone continued its electronic tantrum. Finally, at 5 p.m., I listened to the messages. The first was from Ayla, her voice tight with controlled fury. Call me, now! The second was from Ivy. Kai, what the hell are you doing? The third was from a number I didn't recognize. This is Jennifer Walsh from Ayla's firm. She asked me to call you. This is very unprofessional behavior. I deleted them all and helped Cora with her math homework. At 6 p.m., Ayla's car pulled into the driveway with enough force to leave skid marks on the wet pavement. She burst through the front door like a storm system, legal documents clutched in her fist, eyes blazing with an anger I'd never seen before. How dare you, she said, her voice low and dangerous. How dare I what? Serve me divorce papers at my office, in front of my colleagues, in front of my boss. I filed for divorce. The process server chose the location. You humiliated me. You humiliated yourself. She threw the papers on the kitchen counter, where they scattered like evidence at a crime scene. I thought we were working on our marriage. You thought you were buying time to execute your exit strategy. What exit strategy? I retrieved the manila envelope from my office and placed it beside the divorce papers. The one you've been planning with Brent for the past month. The legal consultations, the asset analysis, the custody preparation. Ayla's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, calculation, resignation. Where did you get those? Does it matter? It matters because those are private communications. So were the emails I found on your tablet. We stared at each other across the kitchen island, 12 years of marriage reduced to legal documents and evidence of betrayal. You don't understand, she said finally. I understand perfectly. You've been planning to leave me while pretending to save our marriage. You've been lying to Dr. Martinez, lying to the kids, lying to me. I was trying to figure out what I wanted. You figured it out months ago. You just wanted to control the timing. The twins appeared in the doorway, drawn by raised voices and tension they could feel, even if they couldn't understand it. Are you getting divorced now? Cora asked, with the directness that only children possess. Ayla and I looked at our daughter, then at each other, then back at the legal documents scattered across the granite surface where we'd shared thousands of family meals. Yes, sweetheart, I said gently. We are. Because Mom was going to leave anyway? Because sometimes adults make mistakes that can't be fixed. Ayla's face crumpled, but whether from grief or frustration, I couldn't tell. The conversation that followed was difficult but necessary. Explanations about custody arrangements, living situations, the practical realities of divorce. The twins took it better than expected, asking practical questions and accepting honest answers. Later that evening, after they were asleep, Ayla and I sat in the living room one last time as husband and wife. I never meant for it to happen this way, she said. How did you mean for it to happen? I don't know. More gradually, maybe, with less drama. Drama is what happens when people stop being honest. And this is honest? This is consequences. She nodded slowly, accepting the verdict. What happens now? Now we figure out how to co-parent effectively, how to divide assets fairly, how to move forward with dignity. Do you hate me? No, I'm disappointed in you. I'm angry about the lies, but I don't hate you. Thank you for that. You're welcome. It wasn't the ending either of us had planned, but it was honest. After months of deception and manipulation, honesty felt like progress. The departure gate had finally arrived.